Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies again with another video. Got a question about using AD to do rule enforcements on Fortigate firewalls. Now, this is basically AD rules. Instead of using the subnet enforcement, you're going to use identity to enforce policy. Now, I did a video on FTD on how to do that. I will put that up here. And I also did it on Palo Alto. I'll put this up here as well. Today we're going to do it on Fortinet. Now, I did some rearranging of the lab to get this to demonstrate this. And what I did was, if you notice, this is still the Palo lab before, but what I did is I switched out the Palos for the active. So I still have the active here. So I'm gonna change that right now. I switched out the active Palos for active passive FortiGates, and this is what I'm going to use to do the AD enforcement or identity rule base rule. So all I'm going to do is block Facebook, but I'm going to create an AD group, which I already have here, called No Social Media, and I'm just going to use a simple URL filter to do the Facebook blocking. Now, the reason why I'm doing that because I don't really have this hooked into FortiGuard, and that's their content filtering service. I don't have a license for that, so I'm going to just do a simple static URL block. But if Fortigate wants to throw me a license or two so I can start demonstrating some more stuff on the Fortigate firewall, I am welcome for that. Oh, I'm always good for free gear or free licensing because that gives me the ability to really test this equipment to see if it is what they say they are. I don't care about data sheets. Let me bang at it for a little bit, and then I'll compare what it says on the data sheet. So let's get into this. Let's fix a couple things here. Let's unlock this because this is my OCD kicking in. I don't like when things are out of place. And let's go over here and let's say passive because I don't like that. That did not say passive. All right, bang. So we're in here now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what it is on the FortiGate, and then we're going to test this out on one of the machines here. Now, you do have to have SSL decryption for this to work. That's the first thing I want to tell you. If you don't have SSL decryption, this will not work because, as I always say, you can't protect what you can't see. And the firewall, if it doesn't see it, obviously none of the rules will work. Now, I'm going to roll into the firewall here. Now, this firewall is HA. Let's log into this. And we're not doing VDOMs like I showed you in the last one. So we're not going to really do VDOMs here today. It's just regular global. And I changed the way I do the policies based on slam down here. So if I go to my settings real quick. So we're using policy base, which is what I normally use, which is down here. And when you do policy base, you get centralized net and all these other things start to show up. And this is what I was usually used to on FortiGates. Now, if you do profile based, still the same thing, but you get the option to pick centralized net. I kind of like centralized net instead of doing net in the firewall policy. So with all that being said though, first things first, what we need to do is a couple things. We need to have the certificate. Now, if you don't know how to create the certificate, I did do a SSL decryption video. I'll put that up here too. On the FortiGate, you need to do this first because you need the SSL decryption and to do this, right? And you need a web filtering policy on the policy. That's another little gotcha. If you don't do that, then it doesn't work. So we have our SSL decryption cert. Watch that video that I just put up on the screen, and that shows you how to get that cert. The next thing we need to do for the user ID to IP mappings is we have to do what's called an external connector. Now, back in the old days, they used to have an actual agent that would be installed on the AD server, and that would give the mapping because it would look at the security events or the security logs. You would get the username to IP mapping. Same thing that it used to be on the old FTDs. They used to have like a little agent a user ID agent that you would put on the AD. Now in Fortinet, you can actually just pull directly those logs using the external connector. And there's a lot of stuff that you can use as an external connector for more information on things that are signing into the network that you can use as policy on the FortiGate. Now, to do that, you need to go to Security Fabric and External Connector. Now, I have two, since I have two ADs, I did two of them, right? One at 81 and 82. To create this connector, though, you just hit Add New, and you get a plethora. I mean, this is ridiculous how much you can actually pull in to the FortiGate. Again, I like this, and I like it. I like the graphical interface for this because I mean it's kind of cool. I like the icons, just the GUI in general. Like I said, I think FortiGate has come a long way in terms of GUI, and look at all the stuff that you can pull in as external connectors that gives you glean more information. Now the one I did was pull Active Directory server. You can do Radius, you can do even Exchange server. I don't know who has Exchange. I don't know if this is Office 365 or on-prem. I don't know who has on-prem Exchange nowadays. Um, side note, I used to be an Exchange administrator. That's how long I've been in the game. If anybody has been an Exchange administrator, you know how much of a pain in the butt that was. Um, Symantec endpoint, or you can. This is the agent for Windows AD, which was the Fortinet agent that you would put on AD, but we don't need to use that. We just do pull Active Directory. So you do pull Active Directory. Obviously, you need to fill in this information: server name, user. Now this is the user account that you're going to use to pull AD and the LDAP server. That is what you need to create prior to this. Order operations, LDAP server, then external connector. So to do that, you want to go to user authentication and then LDAP server. Now I did do Radius as well. I did Radius on my on the other FortiGate. I'm going to do Radius when I do RAVPN. Stay tuned for that. So you go to your LDAP server. You want to create one. Now there is a caveat. We'll actually create one right now. So I'm going to edit this and say this is 81, and then you're going to see me create a new one. And there's something that you want to create, you want to make sure you do. Now, this common name identifier is what you want to use. I remember this common name CN, you do not want to use that. It does not work, right? So you need to put this SAM account name, which is sort of like the same thing on Palo Alto. You use the SAM account name. So we're going to call this PLT82. And since I already have DNS hooked up to my internal DNS servers, I can use the FQDN. We're going to use the distinguished name, which is going to be my DC. And you guys need to know this as well, distinguished names, because when you're using stuff like OpenSSL, you need to create a certificate and you're using a config file. You need to know all of this, how to, do binding, LDAP bindings and stuff like that. You really want to start getting familiar with this. You can't get away from some of the server stuff, unfortunately, as a network engineer. You kind of have to know how to do this. Now, the next thing you know, you go to regular, and this is where you put in that 80 account. Now, stupidly, I'm just going to use the admin account for this demo, but never do this in real world scenarios. You want an account that's pretty locked down. All right, put the user in there. And then you test connectivity, successful. And then we're just going to go over here and test one of these out. I'm just going to use my account that I have on the local AD server there. And this is where the SAM account name comes in. Because if you use CN, it will say identity failed. So as you can see, user credentials, connection status, and my credentials was correct. And then we have it on here. Boom, we're good to go here. Now, I'm not referencing this in anything. This is another thing that's cool, again, about FortiGate. You can see where things are being referenced, right, for polling and stuff like that. So now that that's there, LDAP, you have the external connector. All that's good. Let me see what's up in this. I'm going to edit this to use 82. There we go. Of course, I think I have it in a group, so we will see what's going on. Yeah, it's still 81. I'll mess with that. Oh, I think I know what's going on. I'm not going to mess with that now because I want to demonstrate this. I'll fix that later. I think it's user groups. Yeah, I have user groups that's referencing that, and that's why. Well, this is the next thing. So, the next thing you want to do is actually create your user groups. So, order operations, LDAP servers, we got that. External connectors, we have this. Now we need to get the group. All right, so we go to user group. Now this user group, and I'm going to create one probably using the secondary one. So if we go here, this is how you create it. Now here's the tricky part. The firewall one is the local one. A lot of people think this is going to get you to the AD in the AD mapping. That is not what you want to do. I tried that and I was like, where's the mapping? And I found out you need to use the Fortinet single sign-on. You have to use this in order to get it to work, which is a little alarming, but I get it, whatever. So let's say we want to go, I call it, no social media 2, right? No social media 82, if I wanted to do that. Now you go to Fortinet, single sign-on, and then you go to members. And obviously, since it's the agent, you would pick this for this group and then map the group. Not gonna waste my time doing that though. So now we have this group. Let's go and edit that. As you can see, same thing. No social media is looking for a group called no social media and looking for anybody that's in there. Now I have 2 users in there so far. So now that all that is good and ready to go, I will show you the 2 users that are already in there before we go to the security profiles and stuff like that. So if I go to my dashboard and I go to firewall user monitor, I should see 2 accounts. So that's the first user, that's the second user. And as you can see, username to IP mapping to user group mapping. I like this about Fortinet. This one, I know I say I like a lot of things about Fortinet. This in particular I like because it gives me a very clear understanding of what's the user ID, what the IP address is, what user group it belongs to, and it kind of just shows you right in your face. So we're good here. So now, next thing we need to do is, that's like the SSL decryption policy video. You need to create your profile, which we did that already. Here it is up here. And just a refresher if you want to see what's in there. All it is this is outbound decryption. There's my SSL cert we created, and we just let everything default at that point. So then the next thing I did from a web filter policy standpoint is I created a web filter called no social media. Now this, like I said, is a static URL binding. And that static URL binding basically has Facebook, a wildcard of Facebook, and kind of a simple one, right? Now I could have just blocked it. The wildcard is pretty much going to handle everything for me. So anything that's facebook.com or ends in facebook.com is going to get blocked. Simple stuff. Now, if you wanted to do something with content, you would go to, let's see, I don't want to do static. Where is, I believe it's under web filtering, but I could be wrong. I'm not going to side quest on this right now, but I think there it is. URL filtering. That's the one I just used. And then you got content filtering that you can use patterns on and stuff like that. But we only did a basic URL filter. We didn't do anything else, anything major like that. I don't know why let me look at my physical policies. Side quest again. And I'm just waiting for this to come up just to see what it looks like. All right, same thing. So anyway, now that the policies are there, we have to do and this is because I'm using policy based and I'm not using profile based. If I was using profile based, a lot of this stuff would not be there. So anyway, we go to our SSL decryption. Obviously, we're going to use the new layout. And when this comes up, all I'm doing here from a policy standpoint is everything's going to go through my SSL decryption full. That's all it's going to do. Now I could have went to LAN to WAN. Well, I think this is LAN to WAN. Yeah, LAN to WAN and all sources, all destinations. I could have got real granular here, but I didn't feel like doing that. And now we're going to go to our security policy, which is the last thing we need to do. So we have two security policies. I have my basic internet here, and then I have a policy that's going to go, hey, if it's the source is people in the group of no social media going to any destination, any default, we're going to block it using the web filtering policy. Now, if you notice, the SSL decryption policy matches all. If this was profile based, you would see a web filtering policy and then the individual SSL decryption policy in the actual profile base rule. Because this is policy based, though, from a just creation standpoint, they separated out, centralized LAN. They separated out the SSL encryption part. They separate out everything when you go policy based. If you're learning Fortigate for the first time, you probably should use profile first and then go to policy based. Unless you're like me, I dive straight into policy based and kind of learn how to the logic behind policy based. But let's enter this rule so we can take a quick look here. So like I said, it's going to be LAN, WAN. Now here's the thing. You can't just put the user group. If you take this out, take that out, and if I just put the user group in there, you get this warning saying, hey, you have to match an address group, internal, external resource, or internet service. So you have to have the group plus something, right? So I'm just going to, what I'm basically saying here is anything that's in this group, right? If I had something from a subnet and say, hey, it has to match this subnet and it has to be this group. But because I'm only trying to match this group, I don't really care about the subnet. I put all and then for that group. And then I applied the filter, no social media, and then I'm logging all the sessions here. So now that's all said and done. That's everything you need to do identity-based policies on a FortiGate, right? Remember, order operations, configure the LDAP server, do the external connector so you can get the mappings, right? Then you create the user groups and authentication. You get your user groups in there. Once you have that, you create your profiles. This time we just did a web filter policy. And then you create your policy at the end and you have your SSL decryption already turned on. Like SSL encryption is a part of this, so I'm not going to use that as order operation. That should be turned on by default. Now, all that's being said and done. Now let's see if it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up machine here. Now remember I told you that David was a part of that group that we saw on the firewall. So we go to our users again over here. Because I'm only monitoring that group, as you can see, David is a part of no social media. So now, let's open that up again. I like using Firefox because Firefox doesn't give me too many errors, so to speak. No. So, okay. Let's go to Facebook. Now that should be blocked. And there you go. Now, the one thing I do not like in this is it says intrusion prevention access block. I would prefer it to say FortiGuard, web filter or something like that. But if you look at down below, it tells you right in your face. It's a local web filter block. This could just be a little misleading saying it's a intrusion prevention. Because if you come and thinking IPS or something like that, you may think, oh, IPS blocked it. And technically, IPS did not block it. Now, as you can see, this is the normal block page that comes up. And what we can do is if we go back to our rule set, we can see we got some hits there. And we got some hits. Got a lot of hits. I also got a lot of machines going to Facebook for some odd reason. But we got a lot of hits here. And then if we go to log security events, now I don't think this is going to be application, but we're going to go to web filtering. And as you can see, we can see all the blocks here. All right, we can see, look, David tried to go, here's the IP address mapping, here's the action, here's the URL that they actually tried to go to. So, and again, this is security events. This is different from traffic uh, forwarding, right? Different. Now, there is policies here. If we want to add some more columns to this, we can go to action. Now, I right-clicked on the column and just that menu came up, by the way. We go to action, and then we're going to see, if you go to forward, you're just going to see upset. You're like, wait a minute, this is supposed to get blocked. This is supposed to get blocked. Technically, you need to go to security events. You need to go to web filter, and then you get to see it, right? You get to see what's actually going on. Same thing for everything else. You go to SSL, and then you see, hey, resign as untrust. That is us re-signing the certificate, right? So if we actually go back to here and we look at the certificate, that certificate should have been signed. You see it's signed by us. And if we get some more information and view the certificate, you can see it's now. Remember, I told you about having that common name correct in the last video for the SSL decryption. As you can see, ssldecrypt.plt.com is our internal sub CA on the firewall, and that is doing the SSL encryption, which allows us to see the traffic and then block it. And that is identity-based policies on a Fortigate firewall. Now, this demonstration was using internet. If the Fortigate was like an internal firewall, then you would say, hey, these people in this group can access these servers, right? So it would be identity to probably a subnet rule, because obviously your Windows servers are not going to log in with individual accounts most of the time. So they're going to have a subnet, but you're going to say these people in this AD group have access to these servers. Case in point, developers have access to developer servers, so forth and so on. Keep normal domain users away from the development environment. So hopefully that answers your question about how to do identity-based policies on Fortigate. If you like stuff like this and you want to see more, I got plenty of videos on this channel. Please share, comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. My channel is growing. I appreciate it. I do cool stuff like this all the time. I answer all my questions through email. And if you got a topic that you want me to cover and I can answer it, I'll make a video just like I did this one. This is Don from Padlock Technologies again. Thank you and have a nice day.